dying?
Please say hello to Death himself, the Grim Reaper!
My name's Will, and I'm dead. I know it's sad, but hey, a lot of awesome people are dead. It happens.
And who knows? After long work and dedication in the long run.
What long run? In the long run, we're all dead.
I'm not gonna die. You see, I'm into this thing where if I get sick, real sick, where I'm about to go, they just take me away and freeze me.
Although he is certain to die, perhaps from a household accident, which account for 65% of all unnatural deaths.
All right, we did not die today. I call that an unqualified success.
You're all gonna die. What's wrong with it?
I'm dying too.
You're going to die.
Prepare to die.
Death is full of surprises, huh?
You have no idea.
Welcome to Mortality Movies. I'm Gail Rubin, the doyen of death. That's death, not deaf. A doyen is a woman who's considered senior in a group who knows a lot about a particular subject. So that would be me when it comes to the party no one wants to plan, a funeral or memorial service. I am joined by two other death educators here in the Albuquerque area, Danielle Slupeski, a death doula, and Jane Westbrook, a death educator. We go around talking to people about death. Oh, and our guest, Billy Bones, joining us from Studio 519. Studies indicate that you will remember something you see in a TV show or film clip 30% longer than you do listening to a speaker speak. So in Mortality Movies, we are going to watch film clips related to death, funerals, grief, end-of-life issues, and talk about them with the hopes that you will take some of this information and plan ahead for, yes, our 100% mortality rate. And if you're watching this program on YouTube, you will be able to see the clips that we're watching here in the studio through links in the description box below. So, you ready to watch some movies?
Let's go.
Let's do it. Today we are talking about landmark films about death. These are cultural influencers from the land of movies. And our first movie, probably one of the most influential ones, is The Seventh Seal by Ingmar Bergman. Came out in 1957. Bergman is a Swedish director. He had a lot of influence on other filmmakers as well, like Woody Allen. So we are going to see the opening scene from The Seventh Seal. A medieval knight wakes up on a beach at dawn and is met by death. Immortality. That's what the knight wanted in The Seventh Seal. If he wins against death, you set me free. So what do you think? Do we all want to be immortal?
I definitely do not want to be immortal. not even a little bit. What strikes me in this scene is that if we go to Elizabeth Kubler-Ross's work, he's in the bargaining stage, right? That state of like, okay, how do I get out of this? What can I do? And if I can play a game and maybe that gets me out of it and I win, so I think they were touching on something that hadn't been maybe put together in that framework at the time.
Well,
but we knew exactly. And so, but it's clearly that's what we're witnessing, is what struck me.
Which is the thing with playing chess, is the same thing. It's like we're bargaining. We're playing for keeps. We're playing for win. And so that's really interesting to watch this whole thing with bargaining with death on the chessboard. Yeah. I can outsmart you. Yeah. Which, as you said, never happens. Ultimately, save the last dance for death.
Yes. Dancing with death, that's your thing.
Dancing with death, yeah.
I think the other thing that really struck me in that scene was when he specifically says, my flesh is afraid, but I am not. That separation between the physical and the non-physical, right? There was small, little, it was a one-liner, but it really struck me.
Well, and the non-physical is the internal parts of us that we as people walking around in these bags of meat kind of don't recognize necessarily the spirit within that lives on.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Well, and there is another clip that we're not going to show you right now because I don't think we're going to have time within our 30-minute program. Bill and Ted's Bogus Journey, which was the sequel to Bill and Ted's Excellent Adventure, which came out in 1989. Bill and Ted's Bogus Journey comes out in 1991, and same thing. They die, they cheat death. Well, they don't cheat death, they play death. They play him in
Battleship.
Battleship.
Clue, Twister, and they win every time. And Death gets very frustrated, but he's like, okay, you win. And that's why we have Death in their band in the opening film credits. I know I am doing what I was always meant to do as a death educator, because when I was in college, I majored in film. Everybody had to do a movie called The Bubblegum Film. And I did a takeoff of The Seventh Seal. And you'll be able to see that clip on YouTube as well. Our next movie that is a cultural landmark is Harold and Maude from 1971. It stars Ruth Gordon as Maude and Bud Cort as Harold. Harold is a young, rich man obsessed with death, and he goes to the funerals of people he doesn't know, which is where he meets Maude. One of the great things about this scene is the casket is going out. You hear the parade music. It's like the parade of life is passing by. And in Harold and Maude, so that's when they first meet, and they meet at other funerals and begin a relationship. And she does teach this young man about how to live life more fully. But we were both talking while we were watching this film clip that she said 75.
Something about 75 is too young to go, basically, and 85 is pushing it. So 80 is just the right number.
80 is a good time to check out. And there have been articles. One doctor said, I'm going to stop getting tests at 75. It's an interesting concept of people saying, okay, we don't need to pursue medical extensions of our lives. What was it you said?
Oh, my ex-father-in-law, as he was ailing in his last years, he said, anytime you get a chance after 70 to die, take it.
How old was he then?
Probably 75.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. He died a couple of years later, but those were not his happiest years.
Yeah.
You know.
I think one of the fears we have about death is pain and suffering.
Yeah.
And debilitation. Yeah.
Absolutely. And I completely understand that concept of no after a certain time, and maybe it's not an age, maybe it's you reach a non-negotiable in your own physical health. You know, like some people it's when I can no longer get out of bed, or when I can't, drive, or whatever I can't do for myself anymore. To then just say, I'm just gonna let my body do what it does, right? I'm not gonna purposely check out, but I'm also not gonna purposely try to prolong any longer. That makes a lot of sense to me.
You may have noticed in the clip when she's driving the little Volkswagen down the street, there's a hearse there. That is Harold's car, his vehicle. He's driving this wonderful old hearse. Well, later in the movie, his mother gets rid of it and gives him a Jaguar. Well, he takes a blowtorch to the Jaguar and creates like a mini Jaguar hearse. And I actually had the opportunity to meet a man who did a recreation of that hearse.
Wow.
And you can also see that video about that Jaguar hearse on YouTube. Our next movie is Defending Your Life from 2010. Albert Brooks stars with Meryl Streep. He also wrote and directed this movie. And it's a comedic fantasy look at what might happen after we die. In this case, you go to Judgment City, where you defend your life before moving on to whatever comes next.
So what really strikes me in that scene is that although we're talking about it, lightheartedly and he's joking, I think what he says about fear is absolutely true, right? When we are kicked into fight or flight, when our lizard brain takes over, it shuts down all higher functioning. And so if we're walking around living in that fight or flight state of fear, which a lot of us are without even realizing it, we're not doing a lot of these, again, higher functioning processes that the brain is capable of.
The fog lifts, and what do you say? You're in for the ride of your life.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I see the judgment piece of it as the disturbing part of it, But it's like, is this heaven? Is this hell? And I think a lot of people, as they approach death, and not only as they approach it, I mean, we're all approaching it from the time we're born, but particularly as they're approaching it, it's like, so what is beyond? What is beyond? And that whole idea of having to sit through that kind of judgment is just like terrifying.
Yeah.
But people create that so that they know what to expect on the other side. But it's frightening.
And we only use 3% of our brains.
Is that great?
Little brains. We're just little brains.
Those little brains. Yeah.
While we're getting toward the end here, let's talk about some honorable mentions. I actually did a surveying, what would you say is a cultural landmark death film? 4 Weddings and a Funeral. It's more about weddings and funerals, but there is a very good funeral in it. Death at a Funeral, the UK version, and there is a US version with an African-American cast. That is all about a funeral. The Loved One, which a lot of people don't know about, but that's from 1963, satire of the funeral business. The Big Chill, that starts with a funeral. Departures from Japan, that won an Oscar. Oh, great film, yes. The TV series 6 Feet Under, and we will actually be doing an episode just about 6 Feet Under episodes. Just a wonderful collection of issues that you can learn from 6 Feet Under.
Do you remember My Girl from the early 90s? I mean, that was my age group at the time.
A little girl growing up in a funeral home.
Yeah,
yes.
exactly, yes. And her best friend dies,
right.
At that young age. And it just makes me think of our first exposure to death and how that then sets us up likely for how we view it and deal with it in the future.
As we wrap up here, our closing credits are a collection of film clips, just like our opening credits were a collection of film clips. If you can identify all of the film clips, send me an email, gail@agoodgoodbye.com, listing where all of those clips come from, and you can win a t-shirt from A Good Goodbye with my saying that we're going to wrap up with here. Talking about sex won't make you pregnant. Talking about funerals won't make you dead. See you later.
Hey, I'm going to buy you these books, I think, because I think you should read them, instead of that cat book.
That's pretty serious stuff there.
Yeah, because I'm obsessed with death, I think. It's a big subject with me, yeah.
Death. To die. To expire. To pass on. To perish. To peg out. To push up daisies, to push up posies, to become extinct. Curtains, deceased, demised, departed, and defunct.
I'm watching Cocoon. The spaceship is taking the old people into space. That's the happy ending for old people.
If only were that easy, huh?
Yeah, I remember seeing this in the theater 30 years ago. But it's a whole different thing when you're in the demographic.
So bad.
It's like a Black Mirror.
So bad.
Yeah, it is.
Well, I think it looks like death.
David,
it looks
death.
like mourning. I mean, it looks...
Every movie in every cinema is about death. Death sells.